Welcome aboard the Beseto Express. We'll cover 3 countries: Beijing in China, Sei, Seoul in Korea, and Tokyo in Japan. Together we'll explore the culture of Beseto. All aboard the Beseto Express!
We compare flowers to beauty, honor, hope, and beautiful women. Flowers also represent different nations and people according to their significance. The rose is the national flower of Britain and Morocco, and the tulip symbolizes the Netherlands and Turkey. Of the 3 Beseto countries, the national flower of Korea is the Rose of Sharon, and for Japan, the cherry blossom. China chooses the peony as the representative flower for its people.
Hello everyone and welcome to Beseto Express. Every country has an object that symbolizes the nation. Pasta makes us think of Italy, and the eagle symbolizes the US. As such, various things like food, animals, and different architecture are used as symbols for the nation. There is one thing that we cannot leave out, and that is flowers. Every country has its own flowers representing the country. Today we introduce the national flowers of Korea, China, and Japan.
Ever since the start of man's history, flowers were the closest means of emotional expression and decoration. Most people have many events and dances that are related to flowers, according to their different environment and climate. According to the different seasons and their different significances, flowers make rituals more elaborate and sublime. Humans have always wished to resemble characters of nature, especially those of flowers. And such a tradition still exists today.
In the 3 countries of Korea, China, and Japan, instead of just enjoying the scent and the color of the flowers, it is thought of an importance to purify the mind through the beauty of the flowers and to train the mind through taking care of the flowers. Since every country has different environmental features and different taste in flowers, each nation designated a different type of a flower as their national flower. Then shall we find out what the national flowers of our 3 Beseto countries are and what great significance they have?
The Rose of Sharon, which is also called the single-hearted flower, is the national flower of Korea. And its name means an endless flower, or a flower that never dies in Chinese characters. It's recorded that the history of the Rose of Sharon in Korea is over 2,000 years old. The Rose of Sharon also appears in old maps of Korea as well. As much as its long history, the Rose of Sharon has penetrated deeply into the lives of the Korean people, leaving many traces sometimes in pottery and even as shapes of rice cakes eaten on holidays. From long ago, the Rose of Sharon was so widespread in Korea that Korea was even called the Mountain of Rose Sharon, or the home of the Rose of Sharon. The Rose of Sharon is a flower that still treasures the simple nature of the Korean people. There are more than 200 different types of Rose of Sharon, but the best loved ones are the ones with the white flower petals and the red color in the center. It symbolizes an unchanging heart or single-heartedness. Other than this, pink or violet-colored ones are also popular. Rose of Sharons have such a gentle beauty that in the Orient, beautiful women are often compared to roses of Sharon. Rose of Sharons don't have fancy shapes or colors as other flowers, nor do they bear fruits, but they are loved for their endurance and patience to withstand the hot summer heat, and continue to bloom new flowers for 100 days. Because of such characteristics, the Rose of Sharon heightened patriotism among the Korean people during the Japanese colonial rule in the early 20th century. Some people say they feel a sense of futility when they see the Rose of Sharon bloom in the morning and then shrivel up at night. But the Rose of Sharon has a powerful will to live. The Korean people say that the Rose of Sharon embodies the philosophy of life and ethics of the Korean people the best. It blooms earlier than the morning glory, so it's hard to see a Rose of Sharon bloom unless you're very diligent. It shows off its beauty during the day. And around sunset, it closes up its petals and prepares for the end. Unlike other flowers that grow in temperate regions, the Rose of Sharon blooms in the summer and dies in the fall. The Rose of Sharon does not lose its grace until the very end, but falls as a whole flower and blooms as a new flower the next morning. Rose of Sharons are more loved because they decorate their last hours so neatly. With its powerful will to live that withstands the boiling rays of the sun, its endurance that continues to bloom itself for 100 days, and with its diligence of waking up the earliest in the morning, the simplicity and purity of the Rose of Sharon well resembles the nature of the Korean people. Its white petals symbolize the Korean people who enjoyed wearing white clothes in the old days. And the red center that seems timid to reveal itself signifies the never-ending passion of the Korean people.
신라 때도 보면은 우리나라를 무궁화가 피는 나라, 근화향이다 이렇게 사용을 했습니다. 그런데 이제 한말 때 조선조 이제 말에 와가지고 일본의 침략이 시작될 무렵 그때에 우리나라도 이 나라꽃이 있어야 되겠다 해가지고 특히 무궁화는 우리가 아는 바와 같이 아주 끈기 있게 참 피어나기 때문에 나라가 계속해서 참 발전해 나간다 하는 그런 상징적인 그런 의미도 있고 해서 많은 국민들이 그것을 나라꽃으로 생각을 하게 되었고 그래서 해방 후에 건국과 동시에 무궁화가 자연스럽게 나라꽃으로 된 겁니다.
The peony, which originated in China, is the most loved flower by the Chinese people. The growing of wild peonies started in the 6th century. With its tall height, big size, and elaborate dark colors, the peony became the best of flowers and was spread fast from hand to hand. It became widespread and very popular throughout the nation around the 7th through the 8th century. The peony becomes even more famous as it becomes related to the most beautiful woman of the Orient, Yang Kui-bi. As time passes, the peony came to symbolize voluptuous beauties and wealth, and was loved as a symbol of the rich and famous to the Chinese people. The peony, which has planted its roots deeply into the lives of the Chinese people, appears in wedding dresses of the bride, and even in screens used for marriage ceremonies to wish for wealth and prosperity. In the past, the Chinese people loved the peony so much that they thought the most romantic thing was to die under a peony tree. "100 years ago, the price of one peony flower cost as much as the taxes collected from 10 middle-class houses. Peonies usually bloom in 6 different colors. Some are white, but the most representative is the red peony. There is also the timid but beautiful pink peony and the scarlet peony, but the golden-colored peony is thought of as the best color. The peony, which is called a beautifully dressed girl in flower language, usually flowers in May. From a couple of hundred years ago, cities hold events like blossom viewing and flower painting exhibitions around the 20th of May. During this time of year, thousands of people come out to enjoy the flower blossoms. The cherry blossom of Japan is called the Great Beauty in the flower language. The cherry blossom first appears in history records from the 5th century. It is said that a king was riding a pleasure boat and suddenly a cherry blossom fell into the cup of his wine. He saw the beauty of the flower and named his palace after the name of the flower, which means sakura in Japanese. And with the start of the Middle Samurai period, wild cherry blossoms were moved into the cities and private gardens so they could be closer to the people. And as cherry blossom viewing called hanami became widespread, cherry blossoms became loved by all the Japanese people as the flower that represented the common people. Night cherry blossom viewing parties have become enjoyable and entertaining events to the Japanese people because the cherry blossoms shine brightly at night. Looking at cherry blossoms that bloom after overcoming cold winters, the Japanese people often say, "The best of flowers is the cherry blossom, and the best of man is the samurai." This reflects the thought of the Japanese people who think that the image of the cherry blossom, which blooms and withers all together at once, instantly resembles the spirit of the samurais. The cherry blossom, which resembles the nature of the Japanese people, who are exact in making and ending relations, are often used for names of products or brands today.
いっぱいありますけどですね、桜の特徴って言ったらもうともかく木にですねいっぱいその花をつけるっていうことですね。これが他の花とは違います。やっぱりそれは出発っていうか物事の始め、冬から春にかけてですね、とにかくもう早く咲く花なんでですね、そういったことで出発っていうことから。
People just didn't choose a flower as their national flower just simply for its beauty. The national flower has been chosen through character and value of a nation's people in mind. And since the national flower has such a great significance, it's been used in our everyday lives as a symbolic object. Then, shall we find out where we can find the national flowers of Korea, China, and Japan?
It was the end of the 1940s when the Korean people's long-loved Rose of Sharon formally became the national flower of Korea. Ever since, the Rose of Sharon is being used as the symbol of the National Assembly and the police. The Rose of Sharon symbolizes the righteousness and justice of the nation. The flower is also used in the design of the greatest mark of honor of Korea. Korea's center of all power, the President's residence or Blue House, is also decorated with the Rose of Sharon. Rose of Sharon is also used to designate ratings of hotels. As such, the Rose of Sharon has rooted itself more deeply into the lives of the Korean people through its history of 100 years. The national flower which represents a nation, together with the national flag and anthem. As it shares the joys and sorrows, the pains and glory, together with the Korean people for over 2,000 years, the Rose of Sharon has become the flower that best resembles the Korean people. The Rose of Sharon's strong endurance and powerful will to live reflect the lives and values of the Korean people. The nation of vast lands, China. The peony resembles the characteristics of China so well, and it has been the symbol of the imperial household for many centuries. So, peonies are carved in most of the old relics of the imperial households, and peonies were always close to the queen, princess, and women of the palace. As such, the peony was a symbol of preciousness and wealth to the Chinese people. It was a flower people always wanted to have and carry with them. The peony, which is called the Queen of Flowers, also symbolized beautiful women. It symbolized voluptuousness and mature beauty, which was the standard of beauty in the old days. It was also believed to embody virtue, and it symbolized women who gave birth to many children. As such, the peony was a flower that symbolized money, honor, and the prosperity of the whole Chinese people.
因为牡丹来讲的话，它第一，它历史比较这个源远流长，和中国的文化呢有着一定的关系。啊，你就看这个，咱们这个好多传统剧目，咱们中国的，你像凡是地位比较这个高的，富有的，穿的那衣服都是上头绣着大朵的牡丹花。清朝那个，甭管是格格也好，是那个王妃也好，她头顶上顶的那个，这不都是也是一朵大牡丹花吗？
There are two flowers that symbolize Japan. They are the cherry blossom and the chrysanthemum. If the cherry blossom symbolized the common people, the chrysanthemum symbolizes the imperial household. This made the cherry blossom grow very deeply into the lives of the common people, and being widely used as various ornaments for hair. The Japanese people always want to have cherry blossoms near their body. This can be seen in the cherry blossom patterned fabrics of the traditional costumes. The time you can enjoy the cherry blossom flowers, which blossom earlier than its leaves, is not very long, only about 7 to 10 days. That's why it's always missed and longed for. This naturally makes people draw cherry blossoms on the fabrics of their clothes. The beautiful cherry blossoms live again in such ways, close to the Japanese people. The cherry blossoms breathe together with the Japanese people many other ways, showing off their unique beauty. Cherry blossoms that tell the coming of spring have become the flower that represents Japan as such, and it also acts as the center point that unites the whole nation as one. With the passing of long history, cherry blossoms have appeared in theatrical plays, films, and even novels and songs. As the samurai, who is exact in his action and does not regret sacrificing his life, the cherry blossoms bloom at once and die at once. As such, the cherry blossoms represent the cultures of Japan and are deeply rooted in the characters and thoughts of the Japanese people.
We all know that different flowers have different symbolic meaning. A rose symbolizes love. A carnation signifies respect and thankfulness. Whenever you visit a country, try going to its flower shop and ask what their national flower is, and also the great significance of that special flower. Then you'll be able to find out what value is thought of most important to that country. Well, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on our next Beseto Express. Bye-bye.
Flowers can be silent expressions of the mind, or they can symbolize a family or group. These have become flowers that represent the nation, and they also signify the nation's cultures and values.